Hi Sri. Hi Ramesh, how are you doing? Doing great, and welcome to yet another episode of Reset to Zero. As you can all see, both Sri and I are in this new studio.
Yeah.
And we're trying out a new setup. So let us know how what do you think about it, how it feels.
Yeah.
But we're feeling great.
Yeah, it also has a, I think, little sentimental for us. This is where we started our, the early days of high performance. This is one room where we started with that. We come back here and do a record. So with that note, Ramesh, how are you feeling? This is end of the year.
End of the year, indeed. Like, a lot has happened during the year. So as we sit back and think, right, the other day, someone asked me a question on, hey, you quit Freshworks. Was it an emotional moment for you? How was it then? And, thinking about it right now, I think the transition that happened from Freshworks to High Performer, I was on a high then, right? And the answer to that was, it wasn't necessarily an emotional moment because I was really looking forward to this part of the journey. But looking back right now, yes, we've missed a lot of people at Freshworks, but coming here, things have been fantastic last 4 months.
Really?
And as we speak, like if I were at Freshworks by now, we would be doing the AOP, the annual operating plan for the company.
And for sure not this podcast, for sure.
Certainly not this podcast, right? So
that's a big difference.
Huge difference.
Worrying about numbers, punching in for, even as a BU leader in the past, running a business, a large public company, right? At least reasonable sized public company, you would want to plan for 2 years, 3rd years, or probably like a long-term, short-term, mid-term, all kind of revenue goals.
Right. And
but
that's important.
Ramesh, let me ask you, it's fundamental. What is the fundamental grinding, every time you do, I'm sure you do it for the last 5-6 years.
Oh yeah.
But,
yeah.
Right.
AOP happens in various, a setting. Earlier, when you're in early stages, the AOP is more like a handshake, right? I go and I remember my first AOP back in 2015 at Freshworks was just meeting the sales guys and whatever the revenue goal that was, we shook hands on how many leads I would give them and how much revenue they would close.
They would close.
Right? And heydays, of course. And that's a very crass way of doing the AOP. But towards the end, it got really serious, a lot more structured. Right? But AOP was all about increasing revenue for the company. Right?
But before you go deeper, Ramesh, I know and it's a very interesting topic closer to you, right? What is AOP? Just explain that in simple terms for somebody new. For example, a founder like ours who have not heard this before.
Sure.
What is AOP? Why does somebody do that? What is the need for it?
Absolutely. I think AOP is a very important piece in a company's progress, right? It's the annual operating plan, where we kind of define the way the company is going to operate, right? It gets everyone on the same page. How much do we want to grow this business by? Right? Okay. Keeping the micro environment in place. What's the propensity to grow? If we are riding the wave as a technology, then you're going to look at a very high rate of growth because the entire market is going to look for you. It's about how do you structure the costs inside the company, right? One is revenue. What is the cost of bringing that revenue, right? If you're going to expand, let's say 50% of business year over year, you need a lot more resources. Resources could be people, it could be technology. What is your new product? How are they going to look? What new capabilities are we going to bring in? So all of that is planned in such a way that we know where the goalpost is.
Okay.
We know what the course of the golf course is. Like what the 8 holes, how it's going to be, right? You can't predict the macro situation. But given that ceteris paribus, everything remains the same, this is how we are going to move forward as a company. So it's very important to kind of fix goals and also keep the expectations very clear within ourselves. And if you're a public company, you also want to kind of give that outlook of how we are looking at growth. So that's always.
Is it more for larger companies? I mean, is it relevant for? I mean, of course, not relevant too much for us, early stage startup,
but in some
at what stage do you think somebody should really look at it like an AOP time?
See, in our own company, right? Even in High Performer, we're always thinking about what 2024 is going to look like.
Right.
As much as you said, it's not necessarily applicable for smaller startups, like sub $1 million or sub $5 million. but we're always thinking what's going to come in for 2024, right? In some sense, that is the annual operating plan. Hey, we are not going to shift our product entirely from what we are doing to a completely new domain, right? It's expansion. Today it's Twitter. Tomorrow we're going to bring in LinkedIn, Instagram. What are the content pieces? So that's annual operating plan in some sense, right? You know that we have to, get newer people on our team. In some sense, that's annual.
So it could be as simple as putting in a paper to grand Excel sheet to consume, a big software to use it.
Exactly. But in larger companies, it's also about thinking about what didn't work the previous year. So you kind of reflect back on saying why things didn't work. Maybe we went after the wrong persona, right? And that's a learning, and you're going to deploy it to them. And so you need tons of data points as well to say why we didn't achieve what we had gone to achieve last year, and taking examples from those. And this is a time when the management and the operating people come on to the same stage and talk about it, right? And I think that AOP is extremely interesting. So, but Sri, why don't you talk about being a BU leader? What did you go prepared with in an AOP?
So in general, I think, Ramesh, in AOP, I think it's all about product vision, short term, mid term, long term, and how that would rally the growth. Typically, if you look at a product, the growth comes in with in two forms. Right? Either it could be new business or it could be expansion. And typically, for a product which is being launched in the market, it's primarily typically expansion. It's what we peg into, right? And when it comes to growth, it's mostly how you could expand your existing customer base, or getting new customer and expand them over a period of time is what typically we talk about. And then how do you connect your product, to accelerate that growth is what typically it's done. And it comes to, like you said, the attribution of growth with budget and how do you make it sustainable growth is the discussion typically happens, right? So having said that, it's all about growth. And Absolutely. When you talk about growth, that's an interesting point where there are only few ways in which you could grow, right? That's the most important thing to understand it. Either you could, I'll give some examples and then Ramesh, we can go deeper into it, right? Either you could look at a growth like the HubSpot, where they're $2 billion business, right? Primarily growth driven by expansion. We talk about that in detail, when we delve deeper. Or a good example could be for a company like a Canva, right? Where they typically offer free products and try to drive upsell into individuals and then teams and business. This is how it works, and this is what I think it's all about. Planning your growth.
Correct. That brings us probably to the point of discussing what these growth mechanisms are. You spoke about it at the highest level of there are only a few ways to do it. It's all about how do you expand your revenue base. Revenue from your base, and you're saying it can happen in two ways, which is upselling and cross-selling in the motions, right?
When it comes to expansion of business,
when it comes to expansion of revenue,
the new business, which is I think we also briefly spoke about it in the quarter. But if you look at it, predominantly it's expansion, and in expansion it's either like I said, either it is upsell or you want to do cross-sell.
Cross-sell, right? So you spoke about HubSpot. So what do you think is HubSpot's revenue expansion?
So if you just take a step back, right? I think HubSpot has a good, good like two decades of tenure, right? They started out with the marketing automation software, right? Probably 500, 600 million, or even up to 800 million. They were a single product company, primarily, right? The moment they are seen, their customer base start using, CRM products. Integration of CRM was, the top integration which is done by HubSpot. Immediately they saw an opportunity for expansion and they built a CRM. Right? And as they progressed, right, I'm sure they're pretty much close to doing up, they find $1 million in CRM or Salesforce automation software. Right after that, they started building their service product, right? It's another opportunity for expansion because it could be the same company, smaller, medium. When they start using the marketing product, they would use product for the sales team and they'll use a product for their, the support teams. This is a typical expansion motion, I would say, where they optimize for cross-sell, right? New products,
right?
And this is an amazing case study for a company. We want to do a multi-product company and want to do, mimic growth with multiple products because each product has a saturation point, right?
That is right.
And of course, by the way, doing new business is much harder than expansion.
That's a good point.
That's a way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing which HubSpot has pioneered, even though it is a multiple product activity. But if you look at it, they all build products which are also related to each other. Right? Typically, if you only sell the marketing automation software, you still have a risk of a CRM vendor coming in doing the same thing what you're doing. In a way that also kind of help them to stay relevant in the market for a long period of
That's
time.
one way of looking at it. I think the other way when Srivatsan means saturation is you cannot grow at the rate of growth that you were earlier growing, right? Which is market may not be saturated. It's a fantastic product. You can keep growing, but because of your base, you could grow. Initially, you could start with 70% growth. Take that for 3 years, and then it becomes 50%, 40%, 30%, right? That's the rate of growth kind of shrinks. And to supplement that extra growth, like let's say you have to hit a 40% year over year growth at some scale, then you bring in another product, another dimension to it.
Which you consider the same customer base, because new business is much, much harder. Getting new customers is probably like 5-10 times more harder than selling a new product to an existing customer base, because you have relationship.
That's a great point.
That is one of the reasons why if you see multi-product companies are I'm not saying they are more successful, but you see that they are both prevalent. Okay, right from Microsoft to Amazon to you name them all, they're all multi-product, because the moment you have a relationship with a customer, you can make a customer happy with one product. It just gets easier to sell your next product, and I would put that as one of the good expansion strategy.
Absolutely, you spoke about Microsoft and big companies like Google, but I don't think when they started off, they even thought, okay, I'm going to be this massive company. What also it does, apart from bringing in revenue, is think of it from a operation standpoint. Your cost of acquiring a customer just keeps going lower and lower, right? Over a period, because if your top line is increasing. So the CAC is well in check. Because when you're bringing in newer customers all the time, you're spending that much more amount of money to acquire a single customer. Now, with acquire probably less or around the same number of customers that you did last time, but if you're going to sell additional products to them, then the overall cost of acquiring a customer comes much lesser. Your synergies. That's the beauty of having a multi-product company from an operation standpoint as well, just not the top.
Correct. And so there's one more aspect, Ramesh, right? We look at HubSpot as an example, right? HubSpot has stayed as a small business in the same small SMB segment for the last 2 decades. One of the reason they could scale in that particular segment is because of being a multi-product company, because they are able to sell more than one product to the same customer base. If they didn't do that, they would have to actually grow up market, which is even much more harder. Could be even more expensive, because you need to create a new set of people, new set of talent. That is another challenge why a lot of these companies, typically companies like HubSpot, they just get into this multi-product strategy because it's easier to sell to the same customer base. And you've got brand, you could use the same brand equity and can expand much faster. That's the way.
Just to rephrase what Sri is saying is, when you're selling to the same customer segment, when you're selling multiple products to the same customer segment, the operating costs are, they remain in control.
Of course.
And you don't have the complexity of what a big customer actually needs, which means you don't need a diverse set of salespeople. You don't need to invest in probably, I'm not sure if this is true, but you don't need to invest in locally hosted data centers, compliance. Everything is...
it happens. If you take a look at it, also happens, same thing happens for a larger, a company doing business only on enterprise. Even for them, for them to basically be successful after a point or expand or grow at the same level as they were going initially, they would have to become multi-product, right? Instead of they coming to lower segment, if they try to expand with multi-product, they might be more successful and it's much easier. So multi-product as a strategy is a place for all segments.
Yeah.
That is one way, I think. But let's also talk about the other side, right? Like, when does people, or what are some examples of upsell, right?
So, it doesn't always mean that only if you are multi-product can your revenue increase, right? That's a myth, right? We are not trying to say that you should be a multi-product company, only then can you sell to the same customer base, right? You also have the other way of having the same product, but you have, the different personas coming into them. For example, I think Canva is again a fantastic example because HubSpot and Canva probably are on the same revenue benchmark in some sense. Canva, you can get started with Canva for free, just like HubSpot. And then over a period of time, they have more capabilities, more templates. They are coming out with, and then that is priced at a certain high level. It's for the same person. Like me using Canva for free, and suddenly I want to start removing the background images. Right? I still want to do it, and I want a newer font that they have just introduced. So you are selling for that, obviously with enhanced capabilities of the same use case. You need to pay a little more, and you unlock those extra features, those extra bit of artwork. That's another way, and you're making money, right? Now, one step going further, it could be for different for the team, right?
So collaboration capabilities.
With collaboration capabilities. Now, within the brand team, I could be a designer, but I need my other designers also be on the same page because I cannot keep giving them the templates. There's no way to share those templates. And if so, you can unlock it for a team, which means you're buying more licenses and making it accessible. Now that is upselling to the same user base, but you are growing revenues. But what Canva has also done is they have a multi-product and very enterprise. They have it for education and teachers for K-12. It's a different person altogether.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's three. Just to put it in a simple term, what you're saying is that, hey, upsell happens when you basically add more layer, in terms of the product capability.
Exactly.
And you probably charge them, unlock them as they pay you.
More.
A good example is Canva. I would say Dropbox is the same category.
Dropbox is
Unravel is another good example where they have a free product, then you become premium, and then you buy, the business, the Grammarly for business, whatever. Right? So that's the other opportunity. One is either you basically build a single stack of a product, and then you basically put in multiple levels, and you unlock the levels as they pay more.
Correct.
And there are companies which are very successful doing that. Example is Canva, $2 billion growing there 40%. And similarly, when you do expansion, multi-product strategy, example is HubSpot, Salesforce, all of them multi-product. Right?
Exactly.
So what else somebody can do if they have to grow otherwise, right? What
growing either ways. If it's a cross-sell or an upsell, it also has dependencies on how we are going to sell it. Right, there's the sales team involved in that. So typically, upsell when it's a very product-led kind of a company, product-led kind of a growth company. When you have, the capabilities are increasing.
Yeah.
Then I would say typically it is the customer success team.
In terms of who would be responsible?
Who would be responsible, right?
Who owns it, right?
Because when you're doing an AOP and there is an X amount of quota that you need to go for growth, and that should happen through upsell. You also have to think who's going to help unlock the potential of growth, and that is very important to understand who's taking the responsibility of that expansion business that is going to come in through upsell.
Yeah, so typically what you're saying is the person who owns a relationship or who's closer to the customer should probably be the one who's responsible. And I think after it, we are seeing customer success team and SaaS companies specifically, right? Kind of own the customer relationship after a point, right? So does it mean that it is not, of course, it also depends on the segment. If it is an SMB, you could probably, have a customer success person, get through it. But I also think upsell typically happens when the customer is happy with the product, and it naturally happens.
That's a great point. Yes.
I don't think you need people to help them use the product.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need somebody to do an upsell of the product, in general. In most cases,
I think
that's what it has to be.
Key to that is adoption.
Key to the adoption is it has to be product led. Typically, upsell would also be a outcome of a good PLG. In implemented in a product,
right? I've seen it myself, right? At Canva, I'm struggling to remove the background image, right?
Yeah.
And what do I do, right? It just costs me X amount of dollars, and I just throw in my credit card, and I'm sold. That is the same person who has been using it free.
Correct.
Now you have $20 more.
Correct.
And you unlock more revenue.
But in case of cross-sell, maybe there has to be, people, having relationship to be involved, I guess.
Absolutely. I think upsell, it is owned by when the customer with great adoption, when the product is really being used, really being well used, the customer is able to unlock features by themselves. Upsell automatically happens. But in terms of cross-sell, I think the key is awareness. So does the customer know that I'm no more just a marketing automation company? I also have sales automation, right? So how you've been there looking at cross-sell, looking into expansion, multi-product. So how who do you think you go to when you say, hey, let's increase the revenue from X2?
No, I think it is very a tricky thing, Ramesh, to be honest with you, right? See, the whole cross-sell, your GTM team have to be aligned with the cross-sell motion, right? Because if it is two different products, what I've seen in the past is that the understanding about the GTM person or the person who has a relationship with the customer is not consistently same on both the products, right? So which means that it becomes a little bit challenging, right? The best way to solve the problem is that even the product-led growth has to be the one which will basically identify the potential cross-sell opportunities. For example, if you're a CRM or if you basically are doing a support product or a marketing automation, the good place to do cross-sell is when they try to integrate products. The moment they see they're trying to integrate with a third-party product, I think that's when you basically have to kind of nudge, and you need to align your GTM team.
Provide an example there.
Good example is that, hey, this is a marketing automation software, and then I'm trying to do a contact sync with the CRM, right? I'm sure in case of HubSpot, the moment a customer goes to marketing automation software where they do, sync my contacts with, let's say, Salesforce, who's typical, I think they just have to, have a pop-up or some kind of a product nudge, which can first inform them, educate the customer that, hey, we have a contact module for you.
That's the PLG.
That's free, right?
That's
when they basically start using the free product, right? Then you basically have your, sales or your, the account owner to be able to send them an email saying that, hey, we can see that you've been using your contact sync. Hey, this is what you will get when you upgrade. Now, this is what when you get you do a additional module, right? That is how the GTM teams have to be connected.
How is this orchestrated? You bring in a very important point. You bring in that this is also a PLG-led kind of a motion initially.
Yes.
The signal of which is picked up.
Yes.
And then it's passed on to the sales. How do you orchestrate it? Like between the product and the sales or the customer success in this case?
I think it will be very similar to your new business flow, right? When you basically have a form fill on a website or you see somebody on social who's interested in buying your product, you immediately kind of have a contact or lead assigned in the scene, and you kind of route it to your sales team, right? Same kind of an implementation has to happen even for an expansion motion in a cross-sell, where the moment you see there's a customer who's either using your product, your competitor's product, you need to see a contact or a lead created in your CRM, and then get it routed through your sales process, where the salesperson or the person responsible with the relationship should be able to reach out to them.
Okay,
right. That's a typical motion.
And is that done very well across companies? How? 100%. Because I still think that the art of a cross-sell is not very well done by all the companies, because there are so many signals that you keep getting.
Yeah.
But whereas the salesperson or the customer success in this case is driven by quota, right? So you definitely tend to leave.
No,
there's so many falling through the cracks.
Yeah, I'm very true, Ramesh. But the expansion business also has a salesperson or a customer who has a quota, right? So they need to have a pipeline. So it is no different from a new business where, unless otherwise, for example, in case of HubSpot, they have the same intent of a new business when it comes to expansion, right? So it's the same pipeline generation which happens, right? The pipeline generation happens in a different way here. The signals in which you qualify an opportunity from a new business versus an expansion business, in this case cross-sell, is slightly different. Here you would qualify a pipeline or an opportunity when you see them, there is a need for that. But it's much easier, right? You have the context, you have all of that. You can even get an introduction from an existing, a customer success person or a personal relationship having here. That's how you do it. And you also start looking at opportunities to talk about your other products. For example, you have your, the monthly connects with your customers. That's when you still say that, hey, we see that you've been connecting with, let's say in this case, a CRM. By the way, this is what we do. This is how we help people. So it's much, much easier. The only way, the playbook has to be such that you still have to build a pipeline. You still have to have a quota.
Correct.
And you should have the quota carrying sales reps who also do cross-sell. Otherwise, it's very, very hard for you to do an AOP planning, Ramesh.
Absolutely.
That's a way. You know,
As,
basically plan that way.
Srivastava made it sound like a beautiful song, right? Signals come, immediately someone picks it up. But let me tell you, it's not very often that you see a well-oiled machinery. There are so many things that can fall between the cracks.
100%.
Right? If a sales rep is already hit upon their quota, like their expansion revenue quota, then they're not even good for the month, then it's highly unlikely that they pick up as an opportunity. There's so many things.
It's right? Same challenges, right? Like a new business, you had them. But the most important thing here, from a lot of things what I've seen in the past and a lot of other business might struggle or might find it hard to crack the cross-sell, is because they might not have a quota carrying expansion reps.
I hear you.
It has to be clearly called out that, hey, you have expansion reps separately from the new business reps after a stage.
When does it typically get very difficult to do? So let's imagine for a case that you have quota carrying reps for expansion through cross-sell. You are a multi-product company. Fundamentally, what could go wrong when these two are available, but it's not generating revenue? Like in the planning phase itself.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, Ramesh, you also mentioned that having dedicated reps for expansion, by products, right? That is very, very important, right? Second is most important thing is that you need to basically have to have the signals captured from the product. You cannot do a cold call into your entire customer base and then try to see that you make an expansion business. That's not ways of work, right? You don't understand. You don't understand. For example, good example is that when you're going, when you go to go buy a burger, one of these shops, right? The sales rep on the counter should wait for you to make the decision on what product you're going to buy. In this case, I'm going to buy a cheeseburger, right? Only then they could choose to suggest a price, right? So that's how it works. So the same thing should happen. You need to kind of wait for your customer to use your first product. See that option is higher. See if they're happy, and then you do cross-sell of the product, right? That is a very important motion to understand, which means that the cross-sell motion doesn't kick in from day one. I think the first product is what you should put your heads down, make the customers use the product, get happy customers. The more happy customers, there is scope for
propensity to increase the upsell.
Expansions.
Cross-sell.
And then the third challenge which I've seen is this, where the sales reps or the team, the GTM team, which are basically operating on the expansion, should have the depth in both the products.
Yeah.
Right.
I was getting to that.
Because if you don't have that, then you cannot have a meaningful conversation. Correct. Then it becomes because you cannot run it like I just want to go sell this product to everybody who's my customers. It's not going to work that way.
Correct.
So you need to understand, hey, what's the use case? In that specific use case, does it really make sense for them to have the second product, right? And if you put the customer first, and if you look at them as as a key thing, then I think you can really make it work, right?
And we've seen a lot of cases of opportunity gone lost only because everyone is taking this bold cross-sell upon themselves just to kind of increase their quota in some ways to say, yeah, why don't you buy this? And they're like, hey, what are you talking even about, right? And you're not even aware that you have a company that is making a complementary product to yours. I think that's the point. That if your salespeople are trained, if that motion clearly calls out what are you responsible for, in a salesperson, right? You can't be like, hey, I called to sell you a marketing automation software, but we also have a service.
And also not knowing that the customer has just raised a support ticket on product number 1.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
that's not that whole context is very important when you do expansion, right?
Yeah,
this is not this whole cold calling in a new business kind of a setup doesn't work here. So you really need to understand your customer,
correct,
before you take an opportunity to really do a cross-sell.
I think just tie all this back together. All of this is what is discussed in an annual operating plan, right? It just not the revenue and say I want to grow by X, beautiful looking graphs. It's about this orchestration that it's the operating plan as well. Apart from, generally the guidance is very clear. You want to grow 20% or 30% or 50%
right now.
Growth, right? In these markets, right?
Okay.
But what goes behind in these continuous days of the entire management meeting under a single roof is the operating plan. Like, how is this going to be orchestrated in the sense that executed, that you don't let go of opportunities? How does the data flow? To your point, these signals, where they capture, who's responsible for calling, who speaks to the customer? That is the orchestration that happens in your piece.
And what is the budget it takes?
And of course, all of it each comes with its own frills and budgets.
So there's only way you can escape this thing unless you are a kind of a marketplace. Right? You are in a marketplace where somebody else would come and build the app and they just pay, right? Either you have to be like an Apple.
Yeah, that's the third way of
making money,
increasing your revenues, right?
The point where you basically dictate, because you're just the only player or like
in the market, right?
In the market, like either Apple or Android, where they just take a 30% cut, right?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Like certainly not PLG in any form. Their customer-led growth or whatever that you say, only thing I wish that's a much better term though. But imagine if Meta decides to slap in $5 per month per user for using WhatsApp.
I mean, that's already happening, right? I mean, Twitter already did that for the blue tick. Now there's a premium plus for the
but they're still not upselling. They're figuring out ways to crawl to get the revenue. But that's a great point, right? And that's not the best way to grow as well, right? At some point in time, it shows desperation. And you're just taking advantage of the market situation.
Yeah,
right?
maybe not just desperation, but also, when there is the consolidation, like there's one side there might be some desperation, but in most of the cases, there is the consolidation happens in a marketplace type, right? Either Google or Android is too. If you look at the food delivery, Swiggy or Zomato, right? And as early as yesterday, Swiggy had raised a 2% increase in their commission for delivery, right? Neither the customer nor the restaurants are getting benefited. Right?
Swiggy, which is...
But I'm sure Zomato is going to do the same thing in a few weeks' time or few months or sometime sooner. But that's the marketplace business. But like you said, when it comes to social, like we said, WhatsApp, or until the time there is just not consolidation happening, I think we can talk to each other more freely. But
and that's the beauty about SaaS. I don't think there's consolidation because every day there is a new product that coming up trying to solve a use case. So hopefully there's not consolidation happening in the space of SaaS that lets us also grow.
So you got moving from the AOP to the expansion to consolidation.
That life comes a full circle. Hopefully not in ours. But a lot of things also happening at High Performer.
Yeah.
Right. And we are extremely happy with our progress. 2024, we are looking to, break some barriers. When you're obviously growing from zero, the only way is to go up, right? So that philosophy will not change, I think, unless we screw it up. So I'm really looking forward to it, Sri.
Yes, looking forward to 2024. We just launched a free product, getting new users start using our product because we probably are one of the full-featured, the Twitter staging tool out in the market today. Which is free. There are a lot of products out there, a lot of good products there, but they all have their own limitations. I think what we decided to do is to see if we could be the next Canva or the Grammarly or the Dropbox in this space to kind of let the product out, how the customers use it extensively, and then hopefully we go.
We'll have an upsell.
In that stage, we want to see if we can do an upsell before we look at expansion in that stage.
Right.
So that's where we are. I think last a week and a half has been busy. The team's been putting in a lot of features out. We got our completely AI-powered writer out in the product as well, where we kind of understand what you've done in the past, what kind of posts you've done, what's your tone, what topics you've been liking in the past, all that, and then start creating, templates for you to just get started with you. So it's exactly time
forward. Like I wish I have my assistant who's writing while I'm kind of taking care of sales, and that's the way forward for me at High Performer as a customer.
Probably look at having an AI assistant for the sales and then start playing 4 hours.
I don't think that's going to work.
Play more.
Marketing as of now.
Okay.
All right. With that, this brings us to the end of yet another episode of Reset to Zero. We love researching about these topics, bring in our learnings of what we've done in our past. And it's really fun for us talking about it. It also gives us a break talking about this when we are always glued and probably thinking. So thank you all for watching and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Looking forward to the next one. Bye.
Bye.